Okay, so we need to make sure that you have a calculator that's set to radian mode in order to do these problems, or you will not be getting the same answer as me. So please make sure you have a calculator set to radian mode. So we're going to solve these using the inverse on the interval from 0 to 2 pi. So we always solve trig equations by getting rid of the sign in this case. So we take the inverse sign of both sides. Okay, inverse and sine undo each other. So x is the inverse sine, or the angle where the sine value is 0.465. So we put this into our calculator and we get 0.483 as one of your answers. Okay, and of course you know it can't be that easy because sine always has at least two values that are the same all along the unit circle. And your calculator won't tell you what the other one is. So the first one comes from the calculator, the second one comes from our brain. So let's turn our brain on and talk about what sine does. So sine is a graph that starts at the origin, ends at the origin, and has a 0 in the middle, a maximum value of 1 and a minimum value of -1, also halfway in between your zeros. So here is a rude and crude sketch of sine, one entire period from 0 to 2 pi. Okay, so I want to know when is the sine 0.4, what was it? 0.465. That is the y value I'm looking for. So here is where the sine is 0.465. You can draw a horizontal line representing y equals 0.465 all across this one's domain. And I notice that that intersects my sine graph right here. Okay, this is the x value that we got from your calculator, 0.483. So the question is, how do we find this other one over there? What is its x value, where also the sine is 0.465. So to do this, we use the fact that sine has a lot of symmetry to it. Okay, there's lots and lots of symmetry. Like this is exactly halfway here at pi over 2. And all the y values over here are the exact same as the y values over there. The same distances apart. Which means if I understand that this is the distance from 0, a 0 of cosine, or a 0 of sine, means from my next 0, I have to go the same exact distance. Okay, because of the symmetry of sine. So if this first one is 0.483 units away from my 0, this next one has to be 0.483 units before I get to my next 0. So to figure out the other one, I do pi, which is my next 0 for sine, minus this distance that I found, and that will give me the x value for my second point of intersection. And if I do that and round to 3 decimals, I get 2.659 as the next x value, or the radian measure, where the sine will be 0.465. The first one comes from your calculator. The second one comes from your brain. So let's look and see if we can figure out the same kind of thing with cosine. So we want to know at what angle is the cosine. So I'm going to skip the first step and just do the solving. At what angle is the cosine negative 0.564? And you type this into your calculator. That's in radian mode. And we get an answer of 2.170. So let's see, that's from your calculator. So let's see what that means graphically, because we're going to have to get our other answer that your calculator won't tell you. So let's look at the graph of cosine for a sec. Cosine starts at the maximum. Cosine ends at a period of 2 pi, also at a maximum, and has a minimum in the middle at exactly pi. Okay, and then it has zeros in between your maxes and your mins. So here is a rude and crude graph of the cosine function, more or less. And we want to figure out when is the cosine negative 0.564, so a little bit more than halfway. And we notice that it intercepts right there. That's the one that comes from your calculator, 2.170. And continuing on, we're going to hit right here another point. So the question is, where is that point? What x value? So once again, we're going to turn to the symmetry. We can chop this right down the middle. And notice that from my start point, the point I want is 2.170 units to the right. And if I use symmetry, that means if I go to my end, I would have to come back that same distance because of the symmetry. Ooh, that's a 170. Sorry, that did not turn out so good. Let's fix that. We'll have to come back 2.170 units for cosine. Okay, so I'm going to subtract my calculator answer from 2 pi, what I figured out with my brain, in order to find this second answer. At 4.113 is what my calculator says when I do 2 pi minus 2.170. Okay, so the second answer always depends upon your trig function. The sine and the cosine, you do different things. Okay, because their symmetry is different. So let's look at tangent and see if we can figure out some stuff with the tangent. So here I have tangent is 1/4. So that means I take the inverse tan of both sides. And I want to figure out at what angle is the tangent 1/4, or 0.25. So my calculator tells me that that happens at 0.245 radians. Is the first place where the tangent, where the angle of the tangent is 0.25. And that you can't really see that very well. So let's move down here to do our graph. So here is the graph of our friend, the tangent. It has a 0 at the origin. It has an asymptote at pi over 2. It has a 0 at pi, and it has another asymptote at 3 pi over 2. Okay, and it has an asymptote at negative pi over 2 as well. So our graph of tangent looks like this. It is always growing from left to right. There's a rude and crude sketch. So when is the tangent 1/4? So here, let's make this the 0.25. And we will draw our horizontal line through that. So our calculator said this x value was 0.245. Radians right here is where the line y equals 0.25 intersects the tangent. So the question is, where is that point over there? And the beautiful thing about tangent you will find if you do enough of these is every point on the tangent line is exactly pi units away from the next point on the tangent line. Every single one. This 0 here and that 0 there are pi units away. This point here and that point there are exactly pi units away. So for tangent, when I want to find out what my second point is, I simply have to add pi to my first point. That's a plus. And that will tell me the x value, or the radian, of the next one. So plus pi in my calculator, and I get an answer of 3.387 radians would be the next place where tangent is going to be that one as well. Oh, is there another place on here? Pi, and we're going to have another 2 pi here. Nope, it won't intersect until after 2 pi. So those are both of your answers on the interval from 0 to 2 pi.